Hello, welcome to the Restoring Balance podcast. I'm your host, Megan Garza, and I'm a health coach who specializes in helping my clients address digestive issues for clearer skin, better sleep, and healthier hormones. In today's episode, I'm going to be discussing the importance of healthy relationships, community, and how we're being programmed to believe that community and social connection is not important. So, what defines a healthy relationship? Just a quick little rundown of what I feel a healthy relationship is, and that is someone who respects you and your differences, the fact that you feel comfortable around them, they encourage you to be yourself and to go after your goals, you don't feel confused about where the relationship is going, you communicate even when it's difficult, they show interest in you and what you're doing, also listening, willingness to forgive, mutual responsibility taking, and communication of needs. So clearly this is not an exhaustive list of what it is to have a healthy relationship. And I'm not just talking about intimate relationship of husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever you want to call it. I mean relationships as a whole. So maybe your friendships with someone else or your relationship with your parents. A healthy relationship is important for all different types of relationships, not just marital or, partner. Now, what defines an unhealthy relationship? So this would be something like emotionally manipulative, name calling, swearing at, nitpicking, micromanaging, controlling, being abusive, having unrealistic expectations, them not respecting your boundaries, or you not respecting their boundaries also. Threatening relationships when you're upset. They put you down. You can't be honest with them. It can never be your way. And you can't tell them how you really feel. So, of course, there's a lot more red flags to an unhealthy relationship than just that. But that's kind of what I put together and what I feel would make an unhealthy relationship and what I would ultimately not look for in a relationship with someone and really push that away. Relationships are really important because they give you that sense of connection. So, you've got your grandparents, your parents, your auntie, your boyfriend, girlfriend, sister, cousin, besties, all these people who keep you going, and you need this connection to keep you strong and happy. So it gives you a sense of purpose, and humans are naturally social creatures. We are not naturally reclusive. I mean, some people are more introverted than others, me being one of those people, but for the most part, we do need to rely on each other. We can't just be by ourselves all the time. That social isolation has been proven to be extremely harmful to your health. So, especially back in the day, tribes and villages, it was imperative for survival, because if you were on your own, chances of dying in the cold or the harsh elements was very slim. You might not have all the resources to go out and gather the wood for the fire and also build your tent and hunt the food and pick the berries. You needed a team of people to keep you alive. And that's not so much true today because we have cars and we have transportation and other means of getting all of these basic living necessities, but the emotional aspect hasn't changed since that time. So, there's a lot that's changed since caveman time, but the emotional aspect of that connection definitely has not. So bonding and feeling like you belong and you fit in and having someone to connect with and talk things over, that's always going to be the same. And now jump forward to 2021 and things look completely different than when we lived in stone huts. So now we have cell phones and fast-paced lives and texting. And I really feel like the phones have set us back in a lot of ways. We don't have that strong social connection and the ability to really connect with people on a deeper level. And I'm not saying that's everyone and that's how it's always going to be, because of course there's always exceptions to the rules, but a vast majority of people just, they cannot get their head out of their phones. And texting is like their go-to, and making a phone call is nerve-wracking, and like, that's horrible. Why is making a phone call nerve-wracking? Like, you don't want to hear that person's voice? I mean, of course, if it's like for like an interview or something important like that, then of course you're going to be nervous. But if you're making a phone call to grandma, why are you nervous about that? Say hi to grandma. And since we're on the phone, I mean, you're probably listening to this on the phone. Since we are on the topic of phones, I definitely want to bring in dating and marriage into this scene, because I feel like this is something that has been really detrimental and harmful to many people's marriages, because of the fact that there's so much cheating going on nowadays. And that's really sad, because marriage is very sacred and people don't see it as such. And, you know, I understand that we can get into the debate of, oh, well, marriage isn't really sacred. It's because women are just property. And there's a lot of history into this. And, you know, yes, the father does have to sign the daughter off to the man or the woman that she's getting married to. But that's not what I'm getting into. I just mean in a sense of the unity and the union between those two people who are getting married. So between social media and dating apps, there's just an endless sea of potential mates online to hook up with. And especially with hookup culture and one night stands, it's just a recipe for disaster. It's so easy for someone to ruin their marriage now. It's not even funny. All someone has to do is just download an app, and with the swipe of their finger, boom, marriage is over. And it really is that easy for somebody to do it. You know, I've known so many people who are just, they've ruined their entire marriage because they couldn't resist that temptation. And I don't think that we're heading in the right direction with relationships. Because for me, I saw both of my parents stay together and always make things work out. And I'm very fortunate to have experienced that, because I know that not a lot of people can say the same. And, you know, if you get two parents raising you who, you know, they have a broken marriage or they've split up or some kind of, their unity is not happy and harmonious, that's going to spill over onto the children. And, you know, if you see your parents cheating or lying to each other or fighting, that is probably going to spill over into your relationships as well. So, you know, strong communities really do come from parents and couples that stay together and not screw around on each other. So once you start getting into that territory, society really starts to unravel at the thread and the holes really start to open up. So we're not meant to be jumping around from person to person, especially when we are in a committed relationship, hence the word committed. And I think that it's really sad that people don't take relationships seriously. They think that it's just, oh, I can dispose of this person when I'm done with them and move on to the next guy or girl. And you know, that's horrible. How can you look at another human being and just say, I'm going to use you for this, and then when I'm done, like, that's it? And I get it. Not every relationship's going to work out, of course. But if you are continuously using people like this, definitely reevaluate where your priorities are, because it's not doing you any good. And now onto the topic of jumping from guy to guy or person to person. So, you know, they really tell us women that it's empowering to sleep with as many men as possible and to show our sacred lady parts online for the whole world to see, and that'll make you feel free and blah, 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 blah. But what they don't tell you is that every time you sleep with someone, especially without protection like a condom, you are receiving a part of that person. You are swapping fluids and exchanging your energy with that person. So sex is extremely sacred, and the more you give it away to random different people, the more it's going to deplete you. It's a lot more fulfilling to make love with someone who you feel a deep and profound connection with. So you'll never experience that with someone who you're just having a casual hookup. Sleeping with so many people just gives you this sense that something's missing, and it's not fulfilling. And I know that a lot of people have much different opinions about this kind of stuff in the 21st century, saying that, it's very empowering for a woman to be able to express herself sexually, but, at the end of the day, you're just giving it away to whoever comes your way. You're always just going to be searching for the next fuck, the next one who might just do it for you. And, that's really coming from a place of lust and not love. It does not replace the emotional and spiritual connection that you get when you're with an intimate partner who is a match for you. And I think for anyone who has gone from that walk of life of, I don't want to say like sleeping around, because it doesn't even have to be sleeping around. It can just be, teasing people or, leading people on. You're never going to get that same feeling of that initial, ooh, the butterflies in my stomach, this new person, that you will from someone who truly loves you. And, I totally get it. Loneliness does play a huge factor in seeking out these types of one-night stands. But, you really got to think about, in the long run, is this going to serve you any good? Another big part of this that I'm not going to dive into right now, but pornography really does play a huge role in this. And especially, I know a lot of men watch pornography, and it really warps their mind of what a healthy sexual relationship looks like. And that's where, a lot of people get these ideas of what it's supposed to be like to have sex and to have these connections with people. And being with someone who you love versus porn stars being with someone, like, that's all acting. It's all acting. The people don't love each other. They probably don't care about each other in that sense. And it's not a good situation for where we are going with relationships. But I know loneliness does play a big role in seeking out these types of one-night stands. The profound impact that loneliness can have on your health is just tremendous. So, we talk about getting proper rest, proper nutrition, vitamins, exercise, etc., but relationships really don't get talked about as much. Healthy relationships really are vital to your health. So it can have an impact on increasing your risk of developing depression, heart disease, obesity, a weakened immune system, dementia, and all kinds of illnesses that you might not think are associated with loneliness and relationships. You think, oh, well, that's probably just because of bad lifestyle choices and genetics and environmental. But, if you're lonely, your risk of all of this stuff goes through the roof. So really making sure that you are putting an emphasis on healthy relationships is critical if you want to be healthy. So if you have a toxic relationship or home life, that's really common. There's a lot of people that do struggle with that, and it's really easy to just stay in that environment and just take that kind of treatment, or, just stay in that environment and fight back. And I'm not talking negatively about that, because, there's a lot that goes into it. But this is why so many people who stay in bad situations, they just can't cut that toxic person out for their life, because it's just easier to continue to let the situation be, because there really is a lot that goes into cutting them out. And it's really painful because of the guilt and Also, it just might be really inconvenient for some people, like moving away from your partner who is toxic, or maybe you are relying on them financially. So it's a defense mechanism to protect yourself, because there's a lot of unknowns when you are getting rid of those toxic people out of your life, especially if you've experienced a lot of childhood trauma around toxic relationships. So, when you get older, you kind of start to identify those toxic behaviors that people are showing you as just normal. So sometimes people will just justify it and say, well, this is how I've always been treated, so that's going to continue to be the same way. And also the fact that it might just be unsafe to speak out either emotionally or physically against what's going on. It might jeopardize something in your life. So say, for example, you have kids in the mix and your husband makes all the money and you're staying at home because you're the stay-at-home mom, but he's emotionally manipulative. So sparking the conversation about this behavior really might cause a rift that's either too uncomfortable for the wife to deal with, or maybe he might kick her out, or whatever the situation is. Sometimes staying silent might be the best option in the wife's eyes, just due to the potential threat that she could possibly face. So, yeah, speaking out's not always going to be ideal for what is going on. But just because it's scary and staying in that situation might keep the storm at bay, it does not fix the problem long term. So, not saying to approach the abusive spouse or parent or friend, especially if that puts you in danger, but I'm saying working on getting out of that situation and, being very strategic about it. That's very critical, or at least going to therapy if that person is going to be open to changing their behavior and really talking it out in a non-judgmental and safe way. Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. And I know a lot of people are extremely lonely, and it really does show in how people treat each other, because, you see all these videos and people are just so hateful and fearful, and just they have the lack of desire just to be around another. And it's so sad, because I talk to my grandparents and they always tell me, back in the 50s, people were so nice. They would just come over and see if you were okay and ask if you needed anything and cook you a meal if you needed to. And I'm just like, wow, that is so sad that we don't have that sense of togetherness anymore. And, we've really been going downhill, especially after 9/11. Everything really did change, and things have really gotten a lot worse with the sense of community, and people just don't seem to want to be together anymore. We seem to think that we can just do everything on our own, and we are independent because we have our cars and the internet and our phones and our own money. And, that doesn't take away from the fact that we still need each other. But we really need to start being a lot kinder and more loving to each other, because it's hard in the 21st century just because of the hate and the toxicity propelled by the media. So they've really pinned us against each other, whether it be white versus black, or Democrat versus Republican, or pro-life versus pro-choice. Like, just let go of all of that stuff. Let go of it, and you'll see that we're really not that different. The only reason why we focus so much on the differences is because the differences stand out more than our similarities, but we have more similarities than differences. And I think it's hard for a lot of people to realize that, just because of their programming and the indoctrination that we have all been put into in the system, and also the fact that so many people's bodies and minds are just so toxic from the media and the crap food and their own ego, the fluoride in the water, heavy metals, childhood trauma, and all of these things make people project, and they're just projecting all of their negativity and toxicity onto others. So You see those videos online of these people acting crazy and nutty and just horribly nasty to each other. And, you got to think something in that person's life triggered them. Maybe it was something that happened to them when they were a child and they perceived the situation a certain way and then they reacted that way. And by not having a sense of community, what else do you have? Like, where else are you going to go? Without a strong community, then, you get more crime, people not working together. And when people aren't working together and when everyone's afraid of each other and hateful, this ultimately leads to the government having way too much power and just taking over. And, you see a lot of communist countries and they don't want you to have a strong community or close relationships with your family or friends or religion. And, at the end of the day, that's what all of this has been about. They want us separate. They want us fearful. They want us hateful of each other. And, they won't let us ever go back to normal. They want us to be enslaved and comply with their every command. And, just me saying this, I risk getting deplatformed because it goes against the narrative. And, we live in a time where our freedom of speech is really being threatened. And if you're not afraid of your freedom of speech being taken away from you, you need to wake up and realize what is going on, because this is scary stuff. And I will speak my truth and speak up for what is right and just. And if someone doesn't like what I have to say, okay, don't listen, go move on. There's plenty of people who want to hear this. And I'm not saying that to be arrogant, but to simply say that everyone has different opinions, and it's okay if you don't like what someone has to say. Like, you don't have to take it off the internet and cancel everything. Like, seriously, you can just move on. It's not the end of the world. And, they really do know that people are catching on to their game and they're getting worried. And that's why they're silencing our voices. That's why they are censoring everything. And big tech really has so much power over our lives and privacy. And if you don't comply, deplatform. Just look into China's social credit system. So, it's coming your way if we don't stand up for our rights and liberties. And if they don't like what you have to say, well, you just lose certain privileges, like getting your paycheck through PayPal or going to the supermarket or using public transport. And I know that I'm getting off topic, but I'm sure if you've been paying attention, even just a little bit, to what's been going on, you completely understand my concern about the New World Order and what they're trying to carry out, because this is really serious shit. And I think that we need to bring more awareness to this. And, maybe this podcast is going to be taken off the internet. Who knows? Who knows anymore? But back to the point of relationships. So they're not always going to be perfect, but they're always going to be a work in progress. And, you don't want to be programmed to think that having a strong social connection is not important and to be fearful of everyone. That's not normal, to be afraid of everything and people. And, there's always going to be something scary happening in the world with any kinds of viruses or pandemics. And, at the end of the day, we all just have to do our best to take care of ourselves and to just stick together. And, one day with relationships, like them being a work in progress always, one day might be great, but the next day might be a huge struggle. And it's all just about having that mutual respect and just sticking with each other. So by spending more time with people in our communities and focusing on our similarities and by banding together, this really makes for strong communities. So you notice how much more friendly people are in small towns? Yeah, it's more of a sense of community. That's why. And you look at things like the Boulder, Colorado shooting, for example. That would not have happened if there was a strong community there. Cities are just ultimately failed experiments. They People do not band together. They do not work together when they live in when they live in cities for the most part. But if you went into a small town in rural Louisiana, someone pulls a gun out, that dude's going to be dead before he even tries to draw it on someone, because people there look out for each other. And in these big cities, people really don't give a shit about each other. You know, they think, oh, well, it's just about me. So I'm going to make sure I get out of here alive and I don't have to protect other people. But when you know all those people in that town, you say, hey, that's Susie Q, and that's Betty Joe, and, you know, this is Uncle whoever, you know, it's, you know, the people, and you would want to protect them. So that's really where the sense of community comes from. It's super important to have that sense of community, because, you know, you, like I said, you go up into a small town and you try to shoot it, ain't no one in that bitch gonna let you do that. I can almost guarantee you that you are going to get lit up before you light anyone else up. So community is super, super, super important. And banding together is really what it's all about. Because, you know, loneliness is such a huge problem. And if we don't do something about it, we're all going to be in trouble. You know, we're going to start seeing even more and more of these things. And I mean, it's already to the point where, you know, these shootings are so frequent, but if we all just had a stronger community and we actually took our health seriously and locked up a lot of these crazy people. I know there's a lot more to it about the shootings than this, but, you know, just loneliness. Like, so many people are just so lonely, and none of this stronger together when we're apart crap. Like, no, we need to kindle strong relationships, not over the phone, not over Zoom, but through actual in-person social connection with hugs and kisses. We need to be there for each other and put each other first. A strong community makes strong individuals. These are all forms of nourishment that help you heal and help you stay sane. So, there you have it. Community and healthy relationships are just as important for your health as is sleeping well and eating right. And that about wraps it up for today. So until next time, if you have any questions or comments, my Instagram is Megan Garza Wellness. If you like the podcast, let me know. Topic suggestions are always welcome, so feel free to send me a DM on my Instagram or send me a message through my website for one. Thanks for tuning into my podcast, Restoring Balance. Be sure to check back next Thursday for the next topic.